So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Orcharhino webinar of November. Today we will have the demo part about the Ansible integration in Orcharhino compared to the Ansible Tower or Ansible AWX. And we will start with a few slides. If you often join the webinar, you probably know the slides. Feel free to ask any question in the question and answer section or use the chat. We will monitor the chat, and after the presentation, I will take care that all the questions will be answered. Today, we are two guys from ATIX. So my name is Jonas Trüstedt. I'm a senior consultant at ATIX, and with me is my colleague Frank Engel, who will make the demo part after the presentation. And let's start with what ATIX does. So ATIX has the goal to simplify and automate your data center. So our consulting part is mainly in the automation of Linux VMs and but not only the VMs, but also container platforms. And the automation starts with the deployment of machines, with the configuration of the machines, and is also with the release management. For all these parts, you can use Orcharhino. And we can also support you with consulting for parts that are included in Orcharhino, such as config management tools like Puppet, SaltStack, Ansible. But we also have our knowledge in other tools like the Kubernetes platforms and the enterprise versions of this, like the SUSE Container as a Service platform, the Red Hat OpenShift or Rancher. And we can also help you with application stacks such as Apache Kafka to deploy and to operate them. So if you need any help with this, please feel free to contact us. So why do we automate things? So there are many advantages of automation. So the first thing is to speed up deployments, especially if you automate your deployments. You increase your stability of your infrastructure so that you have a defined state of your infrastructure and you can reproduce it. And you have the possibility to orchestrate your services. And maybe you also want to enable self-service, which is something which can help to speed up processes for DevOps teams. And for this, we use the Orcharhino. For the Orcharhino, we have several departments which support or work with Orcharhino. So the main thing is we have the consulting part where our consultants help you to implement Orcharhino in the best way for your infrastructure. These consultants also give trainings to help your workers to learn how to use Orcharhino. And in case that you have any problems or find bugs or anything else, we have a support department. And since Orcharhino is our product, we have an engineering department which actively develops new features, and on the other side uses the bug reports to fix things and to improve things, and also works actively with the open source community. We will come to that a bit later. And Orcharhino itself has the goal to automate the management of your servers. So in this case, or in the most cases, it's virtual machines, but you can also manage bare metal machines. And this starts with a deployment of a new machine. Then you want to configure your machine and you want to manage the the releases, so the patch level and which repositories are available and in which version, up to the part where you maybe decommission your machine, so you want to delete your virtual machine again and deploy a new one, or you want to rebuild your machine to start new from scratch, like for testing purposes. And in these parts, we have several possibilities. So for the deployment, there are different ways on how Orcharhino can deploy new machines. So there is the way to use an image-based deployment, which means you have a virtual machine template where you clone it and then configure it using Cloud Init or SSH to run scripts, and then you get a new host with a base configuration and the version of your VM. This is also the main deployment mechanism which cloud providers use. On the other side, you can deploy new machines, virtual machines and bare metal machines with a network-based installation. So you boot up your machine, and a DHCP server gives you the network configuration, like the IP address and the DNS server, and points you to your kickstart, preseed, autoyast file, whatever you need to automatically set up your operating system and maybe already configure some services in it. And in case you don't have a DHCP server, you can use a boot disk to implement your network configuration in your new created virtual machine or on your bare metal server, and then continue the same way with a kickstart deployment, and it's fully automatic. And in case of many bare metal servers to deploy, maybe you don't want to use the original way of Orcharhino, where you start to configure your machine in the web interface, and after you submit it, the new virtual machine is created, or the bare metal machine is configured the way that the DHCP knows which kickstart or preseed file to use. With a discovery image, you have the possibility to connect your new bare metal server directly to the Orcharhino without choosing which operating system will be rolled out. And after the host is discovered by Orcharhino, you can configure it with a operating system, and then it will install the operating system. For the virtual machines, there are different hypervisors we support. The main hypervisors used are VMware, Proxmox, and KVM, but also Ovid and cloud providers such as Amazon and Microsoft Azure or the Google Cloud Platform are supported. Then you want to have the possibility to manage your repositories. So which repositories are available to your hosts and in which patch level. So this is the release management part. And for this, we support all the different Linux distributions: Oracle Linux, CentOS, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, SUSE Linux like SLES, and Ubuntu and Debian. And in this case, the Orcharhino is a mirror for the repositories and creates content views. These content views are something like frozen patch levels, so that I can define for my production environment a different patch level, like for the testing environment or the development environment, so that I have the possibility to only use tested and stable packages in my productive environment. Additionally, these repositories may contain errata information, which provide information on which security fixes are included in new version of packages. These errata information is provided for Red Hat, Oracle, and SUSE by the distributor themselves, and we include this for CentOS 7 and Ubuntu and Debian for our customers. The next part is that we want to have the configuration of our hosts. So in this case, we can use different tools to configure our host. So the first thing is that we can already configure the templates used during the host creation. So we can add our custom parts in the pre-seed, in the AutoYast, in the Kickstart files to install additional services or configure them. But in the main part, you want to use config management tools, because then you have the possibility to adapt configuration and to change configuration of your running applications, and you can easily add new configurations and applications to your host. For this, an integration is in Orcharhino to use Puppet or SaltStack or Ansible. Later in the demo, we will see how to use the Ansible integration on 2 different ways. And this can be also used to configure OpenSCAP. OpenSCAP is not a real configuration management tool, but only a policy management tool. Like you define a policy for your hosts, and the OpenSCAP checks if all your hosts fulfill these policies and send a report to Orcharhino, and you will get notified if your host violates any rules of these. On the other side, a config management tool such as Ansible, Puppet, or Salt will not only check these rules, but also change the configuration if it is not correct. And in the last part, you can use so-called job templates, which have different providers, SSH and Ansible, where you can directly run scripts on your host, and these scripts can be in the form of an Ansible playbook or of a bash script, which is then performed via SSH. And in these job templates, you have the advantage that you can define certain parameters where you still want to have an input like a drop-down menu where you can choose from some pre-configured values, or an open input where the user can define what kind of value your variable should have before running it. This is something which makes your life during configuration easier if it is something which is not a recurring task, and it is easier to run a simple script than to write a new Puppet role or a Puppet module or Ansible role or a new salt state. So Orcharhino itself consists of several products inside. So the main thing is the base of Orcharhino is Foreman, Catalog, Ansible, SaltStack, and Puppet, depending on which kind of features you use. And those are open source tools which everyone can use. What we do is we have our engineering department, which works together with the Foreman and Catalog community, helps to fix bugs and improves the features, adds new features, such as the pulp integration, so the repository structure for Debian and Ubuntu repositories. And our engineering department writes new plugins, such as a plugin to manage your VMware or Proxmox snapshots directly from Orcharhino, or to connect directly to the SUSE Customer Center. And on the other side, we do not take the same versions of Foreman Catalog like you get them in the community, but we also use the versions we have tested and are stable, and to get them stable, we often backport patches which are then only available in newer versions in the upstream, or are available in versions which are not already released. And then we do the whole packaging, and we have an improved installation script than the open source Foreman Catalog, which uses Ansible in the background. Then we provide errata information for our customers, like I said, for CentOS 7, for Ubuntu and Debian, so that you have the possibility to get notified of security issues affecting your host, where you can easily patch them by updating certain packages. Then we work a lot on integrating other operating systems. The Foreman Catalog is mainly done by Red Hat for Red Hat operating systems, such as Red Hat Enterprise Linux and CentOS, and we work on many things to have the possibility to integrate Oracle Linux, to integrate SUSE Linux, and Ubuntu and Debian. And for this, we also package the clients needed to use Catalog as the repository server, and to have templates to deploy your new machines with these different operating systems. Then we have the support to help you with any problems, and the consulting department to plan and implement the Orcharhino in your infrastructure, and to help you if you have certain requirements to fulfill to get a way how to implement it with Orcharhino, or which ways are possible to implement it. And since our consultants are experienced in working with Orcharhino and Foreman Catalog since many years, we give trainings, and we have two trainings. One is the fundamentals training on how to use the Orcharhino in an everyday use, so as an administrator of an IT infrastructure. And we have a new training, the Orcharhino Architect, which is then important if you plan to implement the Orcharhino for yourself or for other customers. So this is mainly a training for partners or those who want to implement the Orcharhino for yourself. And this whole package is Orcharhino. So Orcharhino as a base on the open source tools, and then we do some development, bug fixing, backporting, and writing templates, packaging all this stuff, and supporting it. And with this, you have the possibility to manage your whole IT infrastructure with Orcharhino. So to get an impression on how to use it, and especially today, how to use it together with Ansible, so how to implement Ansible roles in the deployment process, how to run these Ansible roles, or how to use job templates with Ansible, will be shown in the demo by my colleague Frank. And after his demo, I will give you an outlook of a new feature our development department is working on, which is also related to Ansible. So, Frank, the screen is yours.
So, welcome to the demonstration of our Ansible integration in Orcharhino. And today, the title is Ansible Tower versus Orcharhino. This is similarly wrong, because it's not a versus, it's how can they work together a little bit, and how can we use the different abilities of the software to use to make an easy day, better life. Orcharhino is a completely whole lifecycle management. So you create hosts, you maintain hosts, and you destroy hosts on Orcharhino. And you can do this in a very convenient way, and you can configure all the how can I say, all the facts of our hosts. And the Ansible tower, firstly, is a web GUI where we can use Ansible playbooks and roles and put them on our inventory of our files, of our hosts to an inventory. The advance of the orcharhino, the whole lifecycle management, is in the production. We can control all our hosts we have in our data center, and so if we need a configuration on deployment or after deployment, we can use Ansible in a very convenient way. We can change our variables for the orcharhino, for the host, and we can set a bunch of configured software on deploying on a host. First, I will show you how a small workflow, how we create a host and set an Ansible role to the host. So we, in the end, we have an installed and configured host for our in our infrastructure. For the second part, I show you how we modify a template with Ansible variables, and in the end, I will show you. After this, I will show you how we run an Ansible role or a playbook on an existing host, and in the end, I will show you how you can use Ansible Tower, the staging in Ansible Tower with a Git integration with source control to create playbooks and roles to use them in your productive area. So the developers can use the Ansible Tower, and in the end, we have a functional playbook and functional roles for our software, own written in our orcharhino, and everyone who has access to orcharhino and has to use it in the main instance can use these roles and playbooks. So you can see here we have a list of hosts. These are our hosts on orcharhino where we have installed. You can see we have a lot of different operating systems. They have different states. Sometimes something didn't work. For example, it's not really maintained. The software errata is not installed or something else. So there's a lot to do. We also have an Ansible Tower, AWX, the open source version, here installed. If I create a new host, I do this on this blue button. I have a template, which kind of host I want to install. Now I want to install, I have seen it in the chat, CentOS 8 host. Oh, wait a second. And this is a random name. We can have it. It's okay. And we have an integrated, and we have a role. We have always a role. It's pinned, manual methods of the day, and we wanted to have an Apache, so we can have a web server. So we have a pre-configured for CentOS 8. We can assign an Ansible role, the Apache Ansible role, say thank you, and it's pre-configured in a template, and say submit by. So it will install as a new host. We don't have to watch this now. This means this will stay for a couple of minutes. After this, we have a host with a web server. So these templates to create, we have under roles. We have different roles. I don't show you that now. You can see here we have the imported roles on our orcharhino, and we can use all these roles Ansible roads installed. So, so now I lost my okay. If I want to change some variables, or if I want to define some variables, for example, for the Apache host, this is a big list of variables that we showed in an easier way. For example, for the message of the day we have installed, I can show you here. I can set a message of the day, how it's configured, and this is now all the message of the day for all hosts, except we can specify matchers, operating system, Ubuntu 16.04, which is very old. And the message of the day for this kind of hosts is, good morning, please upgrade me, I'm old. So we can make, for different scenarios, we can make different Ansible configurations. We have different matchers. We can select the domain name, one host group. We can define in another way, but it's not part of this webinar. We can say it's for all operating systems. We have, this is what we used here, or for each subdomain. So we can set the variables, and all Ubuntu 16.08 hosts will have another message of the day. Please upgrade me. So I will cancel this because this is empty. So another way is to use Ansible, and this is also a very convenient way. If I have some hosts, one operating system, for example, I want to have an upgrade on all Oracle hosts, or want to run a playbook on all Oracle hosts, I can say, I can click here, all the hosts, and I can run my Ansible playbook. This is not very nice. So I can use also a search query. I can use the search query everywhere I want. I can say, I want to use an OS operating system. It is Oracle Linux. I put this on, and now I have a search query, and now I have a bunch of hosts. On this Oracle 7, Oracle 8 Linux, now I want to select, want to run an Ansible playbook because I need something is wrong, something has to be changed, something is special for this. And this search query now is not the same. It will change. I can select an action, run a remote job, and now I select Ansible playbook. This is a very easy playbook now. I want to create a demo file. Let's make it so easy. And the demo file, the name is, read this. Goes right? Yes. Find text. And the content line is hoo-hoo, not hello. I can also define all these variables in the content line, or for the playbooks, I can create everything. So you can change between DNS servers. You can write another DNS server. You can select between two because they're in different ways. But you can't put in the quad 8, for example, because the hosts are not allowed to use others. So you can create some rules in your network for the content of files of configuration. So if you maintain your network daily, so the team who maintains the software is a little bit controlled in the abilities what they can do. So I can run this playbook now on two hosts. We have the search query, and after some seconds, I need a piece of wood. the Ansible playbook will be run. So this is something like a little bit like a dynamic inventory, but you can select via search queries. You can select your whole the hosts where you work for. Maybe it's not an inventory file or something else, or it's very easy to control the hosts. Now I have to wait. Oh yes, 100% success, and we don't log into the host now. I believe him, but we can see here we have okay, we have the old Python version, but we can see here it is okay. The playbook is run, and now we have a new file in the directory with the content woohoo. You can see this here too. This is a very, very, very convenient way to use playbooks and use Ansible roles on an existing system in your daily life cycle on your productive system. And so we think it's one of the best ways to use it, to use Ansible, because we make it very fault tolerant. I can set to a special group of persons who are allowed to do what they want, what they should do, and so it's a good configuration ability. Why Ansible Tower? Why are we talking about Ansible Tower? What we can't do. What we can't do, I can show you. I have an Ansible Tower installed here. Is we can't develop. We don't have a convenient way to develop our Ansible roles and modules. The big benefit of the Ansible Tower is if I start a project. For example, this demo project here, I can say on a source control management, I can take a project and I can select a branch or a tag or something else. So our developers can develop something, use it in an inventory file, test it, next stage, testing branch, test it, and then bring it to productive. And then we copy it to the orcharhino and we can use it there. This is not possible in orcharhino because we don't have the way to say sync this Ansible modules in orcharhino with this Git and this special branch. We have to use external tools, but we can sync them to the orcharhino and import our developed or tested Ansible playbooks very easy to the Ansible. They have a REST API connections between them, and we can import them very easy. So the maintenance team in our company is can very easy use our developed Ansible scripts, our configurations, can use them. Right. In the end, we will see we have a web server. I hope it works now. This is this. It's installed, and maybe it works. No, this website is not possible. Oh, I forgot to. Sorry. I didn't test it before correctly. Sorry. So now the advance of orcharhino is the whole work. We can create a whole workflow. So we can create the hosts, configure it via Ansible, maintain it, change configurations in our way, and in the end, we can upgrade or destroy our hosts, delete them. On the platforms, Jonas told us VMware, bare metal, Proxmox everywhere. And so we have a very convenient way. So I think that's all. Jonas, you prepared something new for our for our Outlook, a new feature of Orcharhino with Ansible, I heard.
Yes, so I didn't develop it, but I can give a quick preview of what will be included probably as a tech preview in the next Orcharhino version. So let me share my screen. So what you now should see is the window of another Orcharhino, which is a development machine. So which is not a stable version so far. And as you can see, there's not that many hosts like on our demo system, and we don't have all the operating systems tested, but we have a new feature under configure, which you haven't seen so far if you already use Orcharhino. There's something called applications. And in these applications, they can have, there are different, 3 different menus. So one of the menus is Ansible playbooks. This is something where you can import a playbook existing on your Orcharhino. So the settings for this is a path to your playbook, and which is the YAML to start your play. After you have configured a playbook, you can define a new application. The application is, in this case, a LAMP stack. And this LAMP stack consists of different kind of hosts. So in this case, a LAMP stack has databases and web servers. And for the new feature is this called application-centric deployment, ACD. And this application-centric deployment is meant to be used for applications which consists of more than one machine. So it is easy to start to deploy a new machine and configure it to be a web server. But on the other side, if you want to deploy an ELK stack for your logging, or if you want to deploy a new Kubernetes cluster, you have to take care that there are different kind of hosts and you have to connect them afterwards. And the application-centric deployment uses a playbook which takes care of this and has these different groups. And then I can define my groups, and I can add something like a minimum count and a maximum count. This is maybe important for something like a Kubernetes cluster where you need 3 master servers and at least 2 workers to get high availability. And then I have the possibility to edit the name of how I want to name my machines or my groups. Then I have the possibility to set the compute profiles. So the default compute profile for my machine, which in this case sets the CPU, the memory, and the hard disks for my machines, as well as the hypervisor. Then I can also add my own Ansible variables for my playbook, which is something like the group vars from Ansible. So these can be set for use for variables like the password, the port, the username, and whatever you need in your case. And I have the same thing as well for my web app. And after I have defined my application, then I can manage app instances of this. So in this case, I have already one of these LAMP apps deployed. And in this case, it's just one database server and one web server. They were called DB1 and Web1. If we look again to the host list, we see that here's a DB1 and a Web1 already deployed. And in this case, if I create a new application instance, new LAMP, I can say, okay, this should be a LAMP application because I don't have any other on this development machine. And I have a new host and I name host 1. And this will be our web servers. And I will add a second one, which is named host 2. And it is our database server. And then I can just override the Ansible variables, which are already predefined in the application definition. And I can also set some Ansible group vars for all hosts if I want to have this, like the NTP server or something. I have also already specified in the application definition. And if I now press submit, the orcharhino does some more than just deploying the host. It will deploy both hosts in this case. And if I add a third one, it will deploy 3 hosts. And after deployment, it will run a playbook. And there you can use a playbook which uses different groups or services so that you can connect these services in the right order, that the things which have to be installed first are installed first, and then the clients are connected, or something like if you manage an elk stack, that the Elastic search database is already running before deploying the Kibana on a different host. And this will be a feature where you can already import app definitions which are already pre-configured. So later you can import them, and you just need to place your playbook, the Ansible playbook, on your orcharhino and import the app definition file. And then you have these pre-configured applications where you can override the Ansible variables and then deploy an application consisting of more than one server. So this can be done with Ansible already, but in this case, you have a graphical interface for it, and you can make these application definitions available to certain user groups, and can also make available some pre-configured variables, and you can manage all your instances already deployed. So in this case, this is already deployed, but if I change some of my variables, I can just rerun my playbook, that it will be reconfigured if I changed something and I want to update my application. So in this case, I can also update my application on the whole application stack, even if it consists of more than one host. And the plan is to include the tech preview of this application-centric deployment in the next orcharhino version 5.6, which will be released starting next year. And this is something we actively work on, so there will be some more features inside this application-centric deployments in future versions. And yeah, so this is something which is also connected to Ansible, but something which will be an extra plugin available next year. So this is the short preview I wanted to give. And with this, I think we are at the end of our webinar. However, we will stay a few minutes. If you have any more questions, we will try to answer them as best as we can. At the moment, there are no open questions in the chat or in the question and answer section. So if you have any more questions, feel free to contact us. And if you already have your questions answered, I wish you a nice evening or morning wherever you are, and hope to see you next webinar in the December, shortly before Christmas.